The crystal city of Velthara hummed with fear. Harmony singer Veltar pressed her translucent fingers against the communication console, watching the displays show only darkness where 3 worlds used to shine. The Korthak Empire had come again, and this time they brought death. Veltar's crystalline body shimmered with pale blue light as she tried to stay calm. Her people, the Zephyrians, were peaceful beings made of living crystal. They had spent thousands of years creating beautiful music and art among the stars. They had never needed to fight anyone. They had never wanted to hurt anyone. But the Korthak did not care about peace. The insect-like aliens had appeared at the edge of Zephyrian space 6 months ago. Their ships were dark and ugly, covered in spikes and weapons. When the Zephyrians tried to talk, the Korthak attacked. When they offered gifts, the Korthak destroyed them. When they begged for mercy, the Korthak laughed. Harmony singer, whispered Tonekeeper Silhaven, her voice like wind chimes in a soft breeze. The defense fleet at Kellar Prime, they are gone. Veltar felt her light dim. Kellar Prime had been their strongest world, protected by their best ships. If it had fallen, then nowhere was safe. The Korthak war machines were too strong. Their weapons cut through Zephyrian crystal halls like they were made of glass. How many survivors? Veltar asked, though she feared the answer. None, Silhaven replied. The Korthak do not take prisoners. They do not want our worlds or our resources. They simply want us dead. Veltar moved to the great window that looked out over her city. Below, millions of Zephyrians went about their daily lives, unaware that death was coming for them. Their bodies glowed with soft colors as they sang to each other and tended to their crystal gardens. They were beautiful, peaceful, and completely helpless. The communication board chirped softly. Another message from the Galactic Council. Veltar already knew what it would say. She had sent requests for help to every known species in their part of the galaxy. The responses were always the same. We are sorry for your situation, but we cannot risk war with the Korthak Empire. Our ships are needed to defend our own worlds. Perhaps you could negotiate a peaceful solution. The last suggestion always made Veltar's light flicker with anger. How could they negotiate with beings who wanted nothing but death? The Korthak had made their intentions clear. They called the Zephyrians singing crystals and said their voices were annoying. They wanted to silence the songs forever. Harmony Singer called Navigation Master Kelmos from across the room. I have an idea, but you may not like it. Veltar turned to face him. Kelmos was old, even by Zephyrian standards, and his crystal body had darkened to deep purple with age. He had been exploring space when most of their people were still learning to sing. Tell me, Veltar said. There is a region of space that all the civilized species avoid. Kelmos said slowly. The charts mark it as a quarantine zone. They say it contains a world full of death, inhabited by creatures too dangerous to contact. You want us to contact dangerous creatures? Silhaven asked, her voice rising in pitch with worry. The Korthak are already dangerous, Kelmos replied. And they are winning. Perhaps we need something more dangerous than they are. Veltar considered this. It went against everything her people believed in. They had always sought peace, always tried to avoid violence. But the Korthak had shown them that sometimes peace was not enough. Sometimes you needed something else. What do we know about these creatures? She asked. Kelmos pulled up a star chart on the main display. A section of space near the edge of the galaxy pulsed red with warning symbols. Very little, he admitted. The few ships that have visited their system and returned speak of a world covered in violence. The creatures there fight constantly, even among themselves. They call it a death world because everything on it tries to kill everything else. And you think such creatures would help us? Silhaven asked. I think such creatures would understand that sometimes you have to fight, Kelmos said quietly. Veltar stared at the red zone on the chart. It was so far away, beyond the reach of any civilized species. What kind of beings could survive on a world of constant death? What kind of minds would such a place create? Another alert chimed. The Korthak fleet was moving again, heading toward their core worlds. Veltar watched the tactical display and saw that her people had perhaps 2 weeks before the enemy arrived at their homeworld. 2 weeks to live. Or 2 weeks to try something desperate. Prepare the deep space transmitter, she ordered. Send our message to the Death World. Silhaven and Kelmos worked quickly to set up the equipment. The deep space transmitter was their most powerful communication device, capable of sending messages across vast distances. They had never used it to contact anyone outside their local region of space. What should we say? Silhaven asked. Veltar thought carefully. How do you ask for help from creatures you have never met? How do you explain your people to beings who might not understand peace? Tell them who we are, she said finally. Tell them what is happening to us. Tell them that we cannot fight back, and ask if they will. The message took hours to compose. They included star charts showing the Korthak advance, recordings of the attacks on their worlds, and samples of Zephyrian music, so the Deathworld creatures would understand what would be lost if they failed. When the message was ready, Veltar placed her hand on the transmission control. Are we sure about this? Silhaven asked. What if they are worse than the Korthak? Then we die anyway, Veltar replied. But at least we will have tried everything. She pressed the control. The message shot out across space, traveling faster than light toward the red zone marked with warnings. It would take 3 days to reach the Deathworld, and perhaps longer for any response to come back, if any response came at all. The next 3 days passed slowly. The Korthak continued their advance, destroying everything in their path. Zephyrian refugees fled toward the homeworld, carrying stories of death and destruction. The beautiful crystal cities on the outer worlds were gone, reduced to glowing dust by Korthak weapons. On the third night, as Veltar watched the stars and wondered if her people would see another sunrise, the communication board came alive. The message was unlike anything they had ever received. It was harsh and direct, spoken in a voice that sounded like controlled violence. The translation computers struggled to process the alien concepts. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. We have received your distress call. A response force is being prepared. Hold your position. Help is coming. Veltar stared at the message display. Terran Defense Fleet. She had never heard of Terrans before, but something in that voice made her light pulse brighter with hope. How many ships are they sending? Silhaven asked. The message does not say, Veltar replied, but it sounds like they are not afraid of the Korthak. As if to prove her point, a second message arrived an hour later. This one was even shorter. Korthak fleet composition and tactical data required. Send everything you have. We are coming for them. Veltar smiled for the first time in months. Whatever these Terrans were, they spoke like beings who understood war. Perhaps Kelmos had been right. Perhaps sometimes you needed monsters to fight monsters. She began preparing the tactical data, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt hope. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Terra Station, watching dozens of officers work at their stations. The Deep Space Monitoring Post orbited Earth's moon, always listening for signals from the vast darkness beyond their solar system. Today, that listening had brought them something unexpected. Play the message again, Chen ordered. The Zephyrian distress call filled the room once more. The computer had translated the musical language into English, but Chen could still hear the fear and desperation in the alien voices. The tactical data they had sent painted a clear picture. A peaceful species being hunted to extinction by something called the Korthak Empire. What do we know about these Korthak? Chen asked. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, her intelligence officer, pulled up a holographic display. Based on the Zephyrian data, they're a militaristic insectoid species, approximately 2 meters tall, natural armor plating, and they seem to enjoy causing fear. Their ships are heavily armed but use basic tactics. They rely on intimidation and overwhelming firepower. Sounds like bullies, Chen said quietly. She had dealt with bullies before, both as a child growing up in the rough neighborhoods of Neo-Detroit and later as a Marine fighting in the Martian colonies. Bullies always had the same weakness. They expected their victims to stay victims. Admiral, called Captain Rodriguez from the communication station. Message from Earth Command. They want to know if we're seriously considering military intervention in an alien conflict. Chen walked over to the main display, which showed a tactical map of local space. Earth was still new to the galactic community. They had only made first contact with aliens 5 years ago, and most species treated humans with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Apparently, evolving on a world where everything tried to kill you made other species nervous. Tell Earth Command that we are responding to a distress call, Chen said. Standard humanitarian protocol. Sir, with respect, Jackson said carefully. Our ships have never faced alien combat vessels before. We don't know how our weapons will perform against their technology. Chen smiled grimly. No, but we know how theirs will perform against ours. The Zephyrians sent us complete scans of Korthak weapons and armor. Our boys in the lab have been analyzing the data for 6 hours. And the Korthak are in for a very bad day. Chen pulled up the analysis reports on her personal display. Human weapons technology had developed under very different pressures than most alien species. While peaceful races like the Zephyrians focused on energy efficiency and minimal environmental impact, humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of making things dead. Their railguns fired solid projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Their missiles were designed to track targets through electronic countermeasures and debris fields. Their armor was built to withstand impacts from asteroids and solar radiation, not just energy weapons. Most importantly, human ships were designed to keep fighting even when heavily damaged. The Korthak, like most species, expected their enemies to retreat when hurt. They had clearly never met anyone who got more dangerous when wounded. "Assemble Response Fleet 7, Chen ordered. 12 heavy cruisers, 40 destroyers, and the Indomitable as flagship. Full combat loadout. "Sir, that's nearly a third of our deep space fleet," Rodriguez pointed out. "The Zephyrians are about to be wiped out," Chen replied. "If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right." As the orders went out across the Sol system, Chen found herself thinking about the strange situation they were in. Humanity had spent its entire history fighting for survival. Wars, plagues, natural disasters, and a hostile environment had forged them into something the galaxy had never seen before. Other species had evolved on garden worlds where the biggest dangers were mild weather and occasional food shortages. They built their societies around cooperation and harmony. Conflict was rare and usually resolved through discussion. Humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, ice ages, predators, diseases, and their own aggressive nature had created a species that saw violence as just another tool for solving problems. "Admiral," Jackson called out, "we're receiving another transmission from the Zephyrians." The voice that came through the speakers was different from the first message. This one sounded older, more musical, but with an undertone of worry. "Noble Terrans, this is Translator Prime Silhaven of the Zephyrian Confederation. We are deeply grateful for your response to our plea for help. However, we must warn you that the Korthak Empire has over 300 warships. Their weapons can destroy our largest vessels with single shots. We do not wish for you to sacrifice yourselves needlessly." Chen activated the reply system. "Translator Prime Silhaven, this is Admiral Chen. Thank you for your concern. Please transmit the current location of all Korthak fleets and your remaining defensive positions. We will be there in 4 days." "Admiral, with respect, did you not hear what I said about their numbers?" Chen smiled. "I heard you. 300 ships. We'll bring 52. There was a long pause before Silhaven responded. "I do not understand. Are your ships much more powerful than ours?" "No," Chen said honestly. "Our ships are just crewed by humans." Another pause. "I still do not understand." "You will," Chen promised. Over the next 18 hours, Response Fleet 7 assembled at the edge of the Sol system. The ships were sleek and deadly, painted in the dark gray of deep space operations. Each vessel carried enough firepower to level a small moon, and crews trained in the ancient human art of organized violence. Captain Marcus Rodriguez commanded the Advanced Scout Squadron. His ship, the Reaper, was built for speed and stealth. It could slip through enemy formations unseen and strike without warning. Rodriguez himself was a veteran of the asteroid mining wars, where he had learned that the best defense was making sure the enemy never got a chance to shoot back. Colonel Diana Vasquez led the Marine contingent aboard the assault ships. Her soldiers were trained in zero-gravity combat, boarding operations, and what the manual politely called aggressive negotiation. Vasquez had earned her nickname Iron Wolf during the siege of Ceres Station, where she had held off an entire pirate fleet with just 2 companies of Marines. Engineer Commander Tommy O'Brien supervised the technical teams responsible for keeping the fleet running. O'Brien had a reputation for creative solutions to impossible problems. His modifications to standard equipment were legendary throughout the fleet, though they occasionally made safety inspectors nervous. As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Chen reviewed the mission parameters one more time. They were heading into unknown territory to fight an alien enemy on behalf of people they had never met. By any reasonable standard, it was probably a suicide mission, but Chen had learned long ago that reasonable standards didn't apply to humans. They were the species that had looked at a world trying to kill them and decided to make it their home. They were the ones who had taken their violent nature and turned it into a tool for protecting others. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump, Rodriguez announced. Signal the fleet, Chen ordered. Let's go save some singing crystals. The 52 ships of Response Fleet 7 vanished into hyperspace, leaving only empty space behind. 4 days later, they would arrive in Zephyrian space and show the galaxy what happened when someone threatened the innocent. The Korthak were about to learn why most alien species were afraid of Deathworld inhabitants. The Korthak battle fleet moved through space like a swarm of angry insects, 200 warships arranged in attack formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons and armor spikes. At the center of the formation, War Commander Thektar studied the tactical displays from the bridge of his flagship. The final assault on the Zephyrian homeworld would begin in 3 hours. His forces had already destroyed 17 crystal cities and wiped out their pathetic defense fleets. Soon the singing would stop forever, and the sector would belong to the Korthak Empire. War Commander buzzed his sensor operator. I am detecting hyperspace signatures approaching the system. Thektar's mandibles clicked with annoyance. More Zephyrian refugees trying to escape. Destroy them when they arrive. Sir, the signatures are unusual. The ships emerging from hyperspace do not match any known Zephyrian design. Thektar turned to look at the main display. Strange vessels were appearing at the edge of the system, their hulls a dark gray color he had never seen before. They moved in tight formations like predators hunting in a pack. How many ships? He demanded. 52 vessels, War Commander. Much smaller than our fleet, but... The sensor operator paused, his antennae twitching nervously. Sir, they are moving directly toward us at maximum speed. No attempt at communication or negotiation. Thektar felt a brief moment of confusion. In his experience, civilized species always tried to talk first. They sent messages about peaceful intentions and diplomatic solutions. These unknown ships were simply charging straight into battle. All ships prepare for combat, he ordered. We will crush these fools quickly and return to our mission. On the bridge of the TDF Indomitable, Admiral Chen watched the Korthak fleet through the main viewer. The enemy ships were larger than hers, and they outnumbered her 4-1. By any tactical standard, this should be an impossible fight. Chen smiled. Signal the fleet, she ordered. Execute Plan Deathworld. Captain Rodriguez led the first attack wave in his squadron of destroyers. The small, fast ships raced ahead of the main fleet, weaving between asteroid fields and using sensor shadows to mask their approach. The Korthak opened fire at maximum range, filling space with energy beams and explosive projectiles. Rodriguez watched the enemy fire pattern for 30 seconds, then activated his comm system. All ships, they're shooting where we are, not where we're going. Basic mistake, execute lightning run. The human destroyers suddenly changed course in ways that defied standard tactical doctrine. Instead of the smooth, predictable maneuvers most species used, they jinked and weaved like living creatures avoiding predators. The Korthak weapons fire passed harmlessly through empty space. What are they doing? Thektar demanded as he watched the small ships dance through his fleet's defensive fire. They appear to be using random evasion patterns, his tactical officer replied. Highly inefficient and unpredictable. Then destroy them. Thektar roared, but the human ships had already reached optimal range. Rodriguez activated his targeting system and locked onto the nearest Korthak cruiser. Fire, he said quietly. 12 railgun rounds hit the enemy ship in the space of 2 seconds. The solid projectiles, accelerated to 30% of light speed, punched through the Korthak armor like it was made of paper. The cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Impossible, breathed Thektar. Their weapons are too small to penetrate our armor. His sensor operator was frantically analyzing the attack data. War Commander, they are not using energy weapons. They are firing solid projectiles at extremely high velocity. Our shields are designed to stop energy beams, not kinetic impacts. Before Thektar could respond, the human heavy cruisers entered the battle. Admiral Chen had positioned them to take advantage of the chaos created by Rodriguez's attack. The Korthak fleet was trying to turn to face the fast destroyers when 12 massive ships appeared on their flank. All ships, concentrate fire on their command vessels, Chen ordered. Cut off the head and the body dies. The human cruisers opened fire with everything they had. Railguns, missile batteries, and plasma cannons filled space with deadly projectiles. But what shocked the Korthak was not the firepower, but the targeting priorities. Most species in the galaxy fought to disable enemy ships, hoping to force surrender and minimize casualties. The humans were aiming for maximum damage and total destruction. They targeted engines, weapons, life support, and command centers simultaneously. "They are trying to kill us," Thektar said in disbelief. "Not capture, not disable, kill." A human missile punched through the armor of his flagship and exploded near the bridge. Emergency lights activated as atmosphere began venting into space. Thektar found himself thrown against his command chair as the ship shuddered under multiple impacts. "War Commander, we have breaches on 17 decks," his damage control officer reported. "Engineering reports main power is failing." "Order the fleet to fall back," Thektar commanded. "We will regroup and—" His words were cut off as something impossible appeared on the tactical display. One of the human ships was deliberately ramming a Korthak battleship. The two vessels collided in a massive explosion that destroyed them both. "Why would they do that?" Thektar whispered. Their ship was not even heavily damaged. The answer came from an unexpected source. The human admiral was broadcasting on all frequencies, speaking in perfect Korthak. "This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. You came here to hunt peaceful beings who could not fight back. Now you face beings who can. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Thektar activated his response system. "I am War Commander Thektar of the Korthak Empire. We outnumber you 4-1. You cannot defeat us. Watch us," Chen replied. The human fleet suddenly changed tactics. Instead of maintaining formation, they split into small groups and began attacking from multiple directions. The Korthak found themselves surrounded by enemies who seemed to appear from nowhere, strike with devastating force and vanish before they could respond. Worst of all, the humans did not behave like any enemy the Korthak had ever faced. When their ships were damaged, they became more aggressive, not less. When they were outnumbered, they attacked instead of retreating. When faced with impossible odds, they laughed. Colonel Vasquez led the first boarding action when her assault ship managed to dock with a Korthak cruiser. Her Marines cut through the enemy hull with plasma torches and poured into the ship's corridors. The Korthak warriors waiting inside were twice the size of humans and covered in natural armor. They had razor-sharp claws and mandibles that could cut through steel. They should have been able to slaughter the smaller invaders easily. But the Marines had trained for combat in environments where everything tried to kill them. They moved through the ship like wolves hunting in a pack, using teamwork and superior tactics to overcome larger, stronger opponents. "Secure the bridge," Vasquez ordered as her team fought their way through the ship. "And remember, no prisoners unless they surrender." The Korthak had never encountered enemies who boarded their ships. In their experience, space combat was fought at long range with energy weapons. The idea of hand-to-hand fighting inside a spacecraft was alien to them. They were not prepared for humans who had spent their entire evolutionary history perfecting the art of close-quarters violence. Within an hour, the tide of battle had turned completely. The Korthak fleet, which had seemed invincible against the peaceful Zephyrians, was being systematically destroyed by an enemy half their size. Thektar watched his forces fall apart on the tactical display. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were burning wrecks. Warriors who had never known fear were fleeing in panic. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen before, as if war was not just their profession but their nature. "War Commander," his communications officer called out. "We are receiving a surrender offer from the human admiral." "What are their terms?" Thektar asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Complete withdrawal from Zephyrian space and a promise never to return. In exchange, they will allow our surviving ships to leave." Thektar looked at the display one more time. Of his 200 ships, fewer than 30 remained operational. The humans had lost only 8 vessels, and they were still fighting as if the battle had just begun. "Accept their terms," he said finally. "Order all ships to withdraw immediately." As the broken remnants of the Korthak fleet limped away into hyperspace, Admiral Chen received a message from the Zephyrian homeworld. The translation computer rendered the musical language into text, but she could feel the emotion behind the words. "Admiral Chen, this is Harmony Singer Veltar. We do not have words in our language to express our gratitude. You have saved our people, our worlds, our songs. How can we ever repay such a debt?" Chen activated her response system and smiled. "No debt necessary, Harmony Singer. We came here to do a job and we did it. The galaxy is big enough for everyone's songs." As Response Fleet 7 took up defensive positions around the Zephyrian homeworld, Chen reflected on what had just happened. Humanity had just announced its presence on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. The peaceful species would be grateful but nervous. The aggressive ones would be watching and calculating. And somewhere in the depths of space, other bullies would be deciding whether the humans were prey or predators. Chen hoped they would choose wisely. 3 days after the battle at the Zephyrian homeworld, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, studying intelligence reports from across the sector. The defeat of the Korthak attack fleet had sent shockwaves through the galactic community. But Chen was not satisfied with just defensive victory. "Captain Rodriguez," she called to her intelligence officer, "what's the status of the remaining Korthak forces?" Rodriguez pulled up a holographic star map showing enemy positions. "According to our scouts and Zephyrian intelligence, the Korthak still have approximately 400 ships spread across 12 systems. They're regrouping for another assault, probably in 2 weeks. And the other alien governments?" "Mixed reactions, Admiral. The peaceful species are relieved but nervous about our capabilities. The Galactic Council has sent 3 diplomatic missions requesting meetings. And..." Rodriguez paused, looking uncomfortable. "And what, Captain?" "Several aggressive species are mobilizing their fleets. They seem to view our victory as either a threat or an opportunity to test human combat abilities." Chen nodded grimly. This was exactly what she had expected. Humans had just demonstrated that they could defeat a major galactic power with a relatively small fleet. Every ambitious species in the sector would want to know if that victory was luck or skill. "Signal the fleet," Chen ordered. "We're going hunting, ma'am." Rodriguez looked confused. "The Korthak came here to commit genocide. They attacked peaceful civilians who couldn't fight back. Now they're regrouping to try again." Chen's voice was cold as space. "We're going to make sure they don't get that chance." "Admiral, with respect, our orders were to defend Zephyrian space, not to launch offensive operations." Chen smiled, and Rodriguez felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen that expression before, right before the Admiral did something that would be talked about in military academies for decades. "Captain, our orders were to respond to a distress call and provide humanitarian assistance. As long as the Korthak fleet exists, the Zephyrians are still in distress. Therefore, we are still providing assistance." Rodriguez grinned. "Understood, Admiral. Shall I prepare the hunting plans?" "Already done," Chen replied, pulling up tactical displays. "We're going to visit every Korthak military base in this sector. Commander Park will take her stealth ships ahead to gather intelligence and conduct psychological operations. Colonel Vasquez will prepare boarding teams for ship capture operations. And Engineer O'Brien will start working on some special modifications to our weapons." "What kind of modifications?" Rodriguez asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "The kind that will make the Korthak wish they had never heard of humans." 2 days later, the Korthak military base at Sector Prime received its first taste of human warfare. Commander Lisa Park's stealth ship Ghost Rider slipped through the system's outer defenses undetected, its advanced cloaking technology making it invisible to Korthak sensors. Park positioned her ship near the main communication array and began broadcasting a very special message. The transmission was designed to be picked up by every Korthak receiver in the system, and it carried something the insectoid aliens had never experienced before: psychological warfare. The broadcast began with recordings of the battle at the Zephyrian homeworld, showing Korthak ships being destroyed by human weapons. But the real impact came from the audio track. Human war songs played over the images of destruction, their aggressive rhythms and violent lyrics translated into Korthak language. But the most effective part of the broadcast was the intercepted communications from fleeing Korthak survivors. Park had recorded their panicked transmissions during the battle, and now she played them back for their former comrades to hear. "The humans fight like demons. They ram our ships on purpose. They boarded the Sec Morale. They're killing everyone inside. Fall back, fall back. We cannot stop them." The psychological impact was devastating. Korthak warriors had spent their lives believing they were the most feared fighters in the galaxy. Now they were hearing their own people describe humans as unstoppable monsters. Within hours, discipline began breaking down at Korthak bases across the sector. Some units demanded transfers to safer postings. Others began fortifying their positions against an enemy that might appear at any moment. A few started deserting entirely, While Park conducted her campaign of terror, the main human fleet began systematically hunting down Korthak naval units. Admiral Chen had divided her forces into fast attack groups that could strike multiple targets simultaneously. The first target was a convoy of Korthak supply ships heading for their main battle fleet. Captain Rodriguez led 6 destroyers in a lightning raid that destroyed the entire convoy in minutes. But instead of simply eliminating the ships, the humans left one vessel intact to carry a message back to the Korthak command. The message was simple. The Terrans are coming. Run, engineer. Commander O'Brien had been busy modifying human weapons with what he called practical improvements. The railguns now fired special ammunition designed to create maximum psychological impact. Some rounds were filled with materials that made enemy ships glow brightly when hit, marking them as targets for other human vessels. Others contained compounds that created terrifying sounds when they penetrated Korthak hulls. But O'Brien's masterpiece was a modification to the missile guidance systems. Instead of simply destroying enemy ships, the missiles now targeted specific systems in a calculated sequence. First, they would disable weapons and shields, then engines, then life support. The crew would have several minutes to contemplate their approaching death before the final warhead ended their suffering. It's not about efficiency, O'Brien explained to a horrified Zephyrian observer. It's about making sure their friends know what happens when you fight humans. The Korthak High Command tried to rally their forces, but human tactics were unlike anything they had prepared for. Traditional galactic warfare followed predictable patterns. Fleets met in open space, exchanged fire at long range, and one side eventually retreated or surrendered. Humans ignored all those rules. They attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. They used stealth ships to strike targets deep behind enemy lines. They turned asteroid fields and nebulae into weapons by luring enemy ships into ambushes. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to learn and adapt faster than any species the Korthak had encountered. Every time the insectoid aliens tried a new tactic, the humans had a counter-response within hours. General Vekhar, the Korthak Supreme Military Commander, studied the tactical reports with growing alarm. In just 1 week, the humans had destroyed or captured 60 Korthak ships without losing a single vessel themselves. How is this possible? He demanded of his intelligence staff. They are outnumbered 10 to 1. Their ships are smaller than ours. Their weapons should not be able to penetrate our armor. General, his chief analyst replied nervously, I believe we have made a fundamental error in our assessment of human capabilities. We assumed they were like other species we have conquered, but the data suggests they are something entirely different. Explain. Most civilized species develop technology to make life easier and more comfortable. They avoid conflict when possible and fight only when necessary. But humans appear to have developed their entire civilization around the concept of warfare. The analyst pulled up files showing human military history. They have been fighting constantly for their entire recorded history. Not just against other species, but against their own environment, their own people, even their own planet. Their technology is not designed for comfort or efficiency. It is designed to kill things. General Vekhar felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. The Korthak Empire had conquered 17 species over the past century. All of them had followed the same pattern: initial resistance, gradual weakening, eventual surrender or extinction. But the humans were not weakening. If anything, they were getting stronger and more aggressive with each battle. It was as if war made them healthier instead of weaker. General, his communications officer called out, we are receiving a transmission from the human admiral. Vekhar activated the main display. Admiral Chen's face appeared, and the Korthak general found himself staring into eyes that held no fear, no doubt, only cold determination. General Vekhar, Chen said in perfect Korthak, I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your forces attacked and attempted to exterminate the Zephyrian people. This aggression will not be tolerated. You are outnumbered and far from your home, Vekhar replied. You cannot possibly defeat the entire Korthak Empire. Chen smiled, and Vekhar felt his chitin crawl. General, we're not trying to defeat your empire. We're trying to teach you a lesson. The lesson is simple. If you attack peaceful beings who cannot defend themselves, you will face beings who can. We have over 300 ships remaining, Vekhar said, trying to project confidence he no longer felt. Had, Chen corrected. You had 300 ships. Our latest count shows 212 operational vessels, and that number is dropping every hour. Vekhar checked his tactical display and felt his heart sink. She was right. Human attack groups were striking targets across the sector faster than his forces could respond. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Complete withdrawal from this sector, reparations to the Zephyrian people for the damage you have caused." And the surrender came on a Tuesday morning, transmitted across all frequencies to ensure every ship in the sector could receive it. General Vekhar's voice carried the weight of a broken empire as he spoke the words that would reshape galactic politics forever. "This is General Vekhar, Supreme Military Commander of the Korthak Empire. I hereby order all Korthak forces to cease hostilities and withdraw from Zephyrian space immediately. We surrender to the Terran Defense Fleet." Admiral Chen received the message aboard the Indomitable as her fleet prepared for another hunting expedition. Around her, the bridge crew maintained professional composure, but she could see the satisfaction in their eyes. They had done the impossible, defeated a galactic empire with a force a tenth its size. "Signal the Korthak fleet," Chen ordered. "They have 6 hours to clear Zephyrian space. Any ship remaining after that time will be destroyed." "Admiral," Captain Rodriguez said quietly, "General Vekhar is requesting permission to speak with you directly." Chen considered this. In human military tradition, defeated enemies often requested personal meetings to arrange terms. It was sometimes useful to look your opponent in the eye and make sure they understood the situation completely. Put him through. The main screen showed the bridge of a Korthak battleship. General Vekhar stood at attention, his insectoid features showing signs of stress and exhaustion. Behind him, Chen could see crew members working frantically to repair battle damage. "Admiral Chen," Vekhar began, his translated voice carrying a tone Chen had never heard from a Korthak before. "Respect. I have ordered my forces to withdraw as you demanded, but I must ask, what are your people?" "I'm sorry, General. I don't understand the question. In all our conquests, we have never faced an enemy like humans. You fight with tactics we do not comprehend, using strategies that seem designed to cause maximum psychological damage. Your soldiers board our ships and fight hand-to-hand against opponents twice their size. Your commanders make decisions that risk their own lives to protect people they have never met." Vekhar paused, struggling to find words for concepts his language had never needed. Are you demons? Some form of warrior species bred only for war?" Chen almost smiled. The question revealed so much about how other species viewed conflict. "No, General. We're just people who grew up on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight because we had to. We learned to work together because alone we died. And we learned to protect others because that's what civilized beings do." "Civilized?" Vekhar's antennae twitched with confusion. "But you are the most violent species we have ever encountered." "Violence and civilization are not opposites," Chen replied. "Sometimes civilized people have to be violent to protect civilization from those who would destroy it." The transmission ended, leaving Chen alone with her thoughts. In the past 2 weeks, her fleet had fundamentally altered the balance of power in this sector of the galaxy. The Korthak Empire, which had terrorized peaceful species for decades, was retreating in defeat. But Chen knew this was only the beginning. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Commander Jackson from the communications station, "we're receiving multiple incoming transmissions, 17 different species requesting meetings or alliance discussions." Chen pulled up the list on her personal display. The names read like a catalog of galactic civilizations: the Altarian Trade Federation, the Crystalline Collective, the Vigari Republic, and dozen of others. Some were species that had been threatened by the Korthak. Others were regional powers who suddenly wanted to know more about humanity. "Schedule meetings with the peaceful species first," Chen ordered, "and send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we're going to need diplomats out here, and lots of them." 3 days later, the first diplomatic conference took place aboard the Zephyrian homeworld. Representatives from 19 species gathered in the crystal city of Velthara to witness something unprecedented: the signing of formal alliance treaties with the Deathworld species. Harmony Singer. Veltar stood before the assembled delegates, her crystalline body glowing with pride and gratitude. "Friends and neighbors," she began, her voice carrying across the great hall like music. "We gather today not just to thank our human saviors, but to acknowledge a new reality in our sector of space." She gestured to Admiral Chen, who sat with the human delegation wearing her formal dress uniform. 3 weeks ago, my people faced extinction. We sent desperate pleas for help to every civilized species in the region. All of them declined to assist us, citing the danger posed by the Korthak Empire. An uncomfortable murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. Several species had refused Zephyrian requests for aid, choosing safety over moral obligation. Only one species answered our call. Veltar continued, a people we had never met from a world most of you consider too dangerous to visit. They traveled across vast distances to fight an enemy that outnumbered them 4-1. They asked for nothing in return except the chance to do what was right. Ambassador Kelix of the Altarian Trade Federation rose from his seat. Harmony Singer, we all understand and appreciate what the humans have done, but we must consider the implications of their methods. They did not simply defeat the Korthak. They systematically hunted them across multiple star systems. They used psychological warfare and terror tactics. These are not the actions of a peaceful species. Admiral Chen stood to respond. Ambassador Kelix, you are correct. We are not a peaceful species. Peace is a luxury that must be earned and protected. The Zephyrians earned their peace through centuries of creating beauty and art. You and your people earn your peace through trade and cooperation. The Korthak chose to reject peace and embrace conquest. Chen activated a holographic display showing tactical data from the recent campaign. When someone chooses to be a predator, they forfeit their right to complain when they meet a bigger predator. We gave the Korthak multiple opportunities to withdraw. They chose to continue their aggression until they had no choice but to surrender. But what happens now? Asked Counselor Thren of the Vigari Republic. You have demonstrated that human military force can defeat any threat in this region. What guarantee do we have that you will not become conquerors yourselves? The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. Chen could see the fear in the delegates' eyes. They were grateful for human intervention but terrified of human power. You have the same guarantee we gave the Zephyrians. Chen replied simply, our word. That is not enough, Counselor Thren protested. Your species is clearly capable of conquering this entire sector. How can we trust that you will not? Chen walked to the center of the hall where she could address all the delegates directly. Counselor, your people have been part of galactic civilization for over 1,000 years. In that time, how many wars have you fought? The Vigari Republic has been at peace for 8 centuries, Thren replied proudly. And how many of your people have died in military service during that time? None, of course. We settled disputes through negotiation and trade agreements. Chen nodded. Humans have been spacefaring for less than 2 centuries. In that time, we have fought in 47 major conflicts and lost over 3 million military personnel. We know the cost of war better than any species in this room. She gestured to the human delegation, each officer wearing ribbons representing battles fought and comrades lost. We do not fight because we enjoy it. We fight because someone has to. The galaxy is full of species like the Korthak who believe that might makes right. If civilized people do not stand against them, then civilization dies. So you propose to become our protectors? Ambassador Kelix asked. A kind of galactic police force? We propose to become your partners, Chen corrected. You have resources, technology, and knowledge that we need. We have military capabilities that you need. Together, we can build something better than what came before. The negotiations continued for 3 days. When they ended, 17 species had signed formal alliance agreements with humanity. The treaties established mutual defense pacts, technology sharing agreements, and joint colonization rights. More importantly, they recognized humanity as the official military protector of peaceful species in the sector. As the delegates prepared to return to their homeworlds, Ambassador Veltar approached Admiral Chen privately. Admiral, there is something I must tell you, the Zephyrian said, her crystalline features shimmering with concern. During the negotiations, we detected communications from several aggressive species beyond our borders. They have been monitoring the situation here with great interest. What kind of interest? Chen asked. The kind that suggests they may be planning to test human resolve themselves. Your victory over the Korthak has impressed some and frightened others, but it has also attracted attention from those who see humanity as either a threat to be eliminated or a prize to be claimed. Chen felt a familiar sensation in her stomach, the pre-battle tension that had saved her life more times than she could count. How many species?